Princess Charlotte, here are your strawberries.
Thank you.
And here are your fluffy slippers. Would you like a foot massage this morning?
Yes, please.
Princess, your father has a meeting with the President of France this morning, and he'd like you to meet him. So please get ready right after breakfast.
Okay. This was a snippet of my life at 12 years old. I was a princess with a life many would envy, and I would inherit the entire kingdom someday, so basically, I was a billionaire. My life was ideal. Well, for basic people, I guess. I got breakfast in bed, and I had at least 3 servants who'd get me whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. I lived in a massive castle and had almost an entire floor to myself. I got everything, but do you know what? I was sick of it all. And I was able to escape my miserable life, but you'll have to keep watching if you want to know how. It gets really crazy, trust me. So you're probably wondering, well, Charlotte, you have the life any girl would love, so what exactly were you sick of anyway? Well, firstly, I had no real friends my age. Because I was royalty, I was homeschooled. I had a governess, and I know it sounds old-fashioned, but hey, that was my life. I had no siblings, so often I had no one my age to talk to. My online activities were restricted for safety reasons, so I couldn't even make virtual friends. Sometimes I saw other kids, but those were boring kids of other royal families, and they weren't really worth knowing, to be honest. And we didn't have much to talk about because our lives were really similar. I watched TV a lot when I was allowed, and I'd often wonder what it would be like to live a normal life. It looked like lots of fun to live in a random house in the suburbs, hang out with the neighborhood kids, walk the dog, ride a bike to school, or even go to school. While ordinary girls were probably envying me for the kind of lifestyle I had, I was so jealous of them. I just wanted to know what it would be like to have an ordinary life. My 13th birthday was coming up, and my parents told me I could have anything I wanted. I used this as an opportunity to try to get out of the boring castle. I want to live a normal life outside of the castle. I want to go to school with regular kids, and I want to have friends.
But you know you can't do that. What about privacy? The paparazzi would be all over the place. Someone might kidnap you. All sorts of horrible things might happen.
Yes, I know that, but what if there was a way to make it work?
What do you mean?
Well, a disguise of some sort. We could cut my hair, dye it black, and I could wear colored contact lenses.
And where would you live?
Come on, Mom, we're loaded. Just pay 2 random people to pretend they're my parents. We could move into a regular neighborhood in the suburbs. You could make up a new birth certificate for me and everything so it'd all look real.
You sure put a lot of thought into that, honey.
I really want to leave this place for a while.
Fine. We did say you could have whatever you wanted, so we'll organize it.
It took them about 2 weeks and lots of interviews to find the right man and woman to pretend to be my parents. They were sworn to secrecy, and if they revealed to anyone who I really was, they'd end up facing serious harm. I was introduced to them, a cute young couple named Maureen and Oliver. Before we could start, I needed to change the way I looked. Before, I had long red hair, but we cut it to my shoulders and dyed it black. I wore brown contact lenses over my gray eyes. It was like I became a whole different person. Then my parents bought a decent house in the suburbs, helped me pack, and I was off. We got into Maureen and Oliver's average car and drove away. When we got to my new home, I found my room, which was a whole lot smaller than the room in the castle. But it had most of the things I needed anyway, and I had loads of clothes too.
So, what do you want to do first?
Maureen asked.
There's no food in the house yet, so I think we could go to the supermarket and you could choose a few things you'd like to eat.
I stared at her in shock. I'd never been to a supermarket before because, well, have you ever seen a princess in a supermarket? We get people to do that for us. But still, I was thrilled. Oliver stayed home and Maureen and I set off on our supermarket adventure. On the way there, I stared out the car window, fascinated by everything I was seeing. Stuff I'd only seen on television. People riding bicycles, walking dogs, laughing, playing. I felt so happy and calm. In the supermarket, I picked a lot of junk food I'd never had before. Apparently, our chefs at the palace were only allowed to cook healthy, organic food. I'd never had stuff like frozen pizza or hot dogs before. We got home and I ate more than I'd ever eaten before. I tried Jell-O for the first time too. Anyway, the next day, Oliver and Maureen were going to take me to school. I already had all my clothes and supplies, so I didn't have to worry about that. I was just super nervous about finally getting the opportunity to be around other kids my age. I couldn't sleep that night, so I woke up super tired. I had a normal breakfast of French toast in the dining room with my fake parents. No one brought me strawberries or gave me a foot massage, but I was okay with that. After that, I went to get ready and Maureen drove me to school.
Now, I know this is all new to you, but don't worry. Once you find your first class, you'll be okay.
I got out of the car and walked through the hallway. I had never seen so many kids in one place at the same time, ever. I walked around for a while, but eventually I realized that I had no idea where to go. I came across a man who looked like a teacher, so I asked him, "Hi, I'm new here, and I don't know where to go."
Do you have your timetable?
Yes. I handed it to him, and he asked me to follow him. He took me to my class, and instead of being shy and sitting in the back, I went straight to the front. No one was in there yet, so I just sat and waited. Then the class started filling up, and people would come to stare at me, then go to their seats. Then what seemed to be my teacher walked in.
Good morning, guys. No nonsense today, please. I'm not in the mood for detentions. I've got plans after school.
Ooh, Miss Hall, you've got a date.
Shut up, Dexter. Oh, it appears we have a new student with us today. Would you mind standing up and introducing yourself?
I got up nervously and lied. My name is Stephanie. My parents and I just moved here last week.
Nice to meet you, Stephanie. I hope you'll have a wonderful time here.
Thanks. My day was thrilling. It turned out that Miss Hall was our English teacher. She put us into groups of 4 to complete some activity on subjects and predicates, which I could do really well already. There were 2 girls in my group, Denise and Charlene, and 1 guy called Oren. Oren was sort of nerdy, but I found him really cute. We had a lot of fun during that class, and they asked me to sit with them at lunchtime later. We spoke about all sorts of things, and for the first time in my life, I was actually starting to feel like a normal kid.
Hey, some of us are going to the movies on Saturday. Would you like to come along?
Sure. I had never been to the movies before, and I was so excited when I got home to tell Maureen and Oliver about my day. I've been invited to the movies.
That's great. We'll drop you off. What time?
6, I think. My awesome week at school sped by. My teachers seemed to love me because I already knew everything they were teaching. Then Saturday arrived and my fake parents drove me to the cinema. I met my new friends outside and we walked in together. The smell of popcorn and snacks was overwhelming, and I felt like I needed to have it all. After buying loads for me and my friends, we went to watch the movies. After that, Charlene asked us if we'd like to hang out at her house, and I quickly agreed. I'd never been invited to an ordinary person's house before. So we went there and sat in her living room. Her house was definitely small compared to my castle, but she seemed to be very happy there. Her mom and dad just had a new baby, and I got to hold her. It was also my first time doing that. As time passed by, I started to appreciate this ordinary type of life much more than the one I had before. School was a mind-blowing experience, and I loved being around so many people. My teachers started choosing me for all types of competitions because I seemed to be smarter than everyone else. So I won spelling bees, science fairs, and anything else I participated in. Oh, and I started going out with Oren too. We went on innocent little dates, and I thought he was so cute. He'd always bring me little chocolates and stuffed animals and things like that. We'd hang out at the mall after school a lot because it became my new favorite place. I loved buying stuff from all the shops and just staring at people wondering what their lives were like. But one day, I think I made a mistake. Oren and I had just left a jewelry store and I had bought about $500 worth of bracelets.
How come you have so much money, Stephanie?
Okay, I'll tell you the truth. I'm really a princess. My real name is Charlotte. The people I live with aren't my real parents. I just came here to experience what an ordinary life was like.
Whoa!
He said. He looked a bit upset. Then he walked away from me. I couldn't understand what I'd done wrong. When I got home, though, you won't believe what happened. There were news reporters surrounding the house, and as I tried to get to the front door, they all approached me.
Is it true you're Princess Charlotte? What are you doing living around here? Are those your real parents?
I dodged them all and ran inside. Maureen and Oliver were sitting in the living room looking worried.
Who did you tell?
A boy I was going out with, Oren.
You weren't supposed to say anything to anyone. Your parents are coming to get you as soon as these reporters leave.
I sighed. I guess I really messed up, but I felt so betrayed that the boy I liked did something like that to me. Later, I packed up my ordinary things and got into the car, which was driven by my parents' drivers. They were disappointed in me, but excited to hear about my adventures, as they had never really experienced that themselves. I asked them if I could still be friends with Charlene and Denise, and they agreed. So at least there's that. None of us are talking to Oren anymore, but I'm happy I still have 2 friends who can tell me all about life out there. Sometimes I even sneak out with them to have fun. Although I'm back in the boring castle, life has improved a bit, so I'm grateful for that.
Mom, I want this now.
No, dear, I can't afford it right now.
You're the worst mom in the world. You never buy me anything I want because you hate me. I was only 9 years old, but those words were enough to make my mom start crying in the toy store. She had taken me there to buy me something small because I had gotten an A+ on my math test. But I didn't want something small. I wanted this super cool remote control car, which was really expensive apparently. I was too little to know about prices. My mom grabbed my hand and walked outside. We were walking home when we were approached by a kind-looking old lady. I don't even think my mom knew her, but I'll always remember what she said to me. Your mom loves you very much, but you won't know that until you actually spend a day in her shoes. Try doing that, and I'm sure you'll be a lot kinder in the future. And I did get to do that, and a whole lot more. But you'll need to keep watching to find out what. Before falling asleep that night, I tossed and turned and kept thinking about her words. I wondered what it would be like to wake up as another person and to live their life. Now, you know when you're little, you think that wishes come true and all that stuff, so I actually said to myself before I closed my eyes, tomorrow, I wish I could live my mom's life. The next morning, I woke up feeling weird. I walked into my mom's room and she was gone. But then I looked at my hands and legs and realized I looked really different. And why was I wearing nail polish? I went to look in the mirror and I saw my mom looking back at me. No way, I really had become her. But it was weird because suddenly I had no control over the things she said and did. It was like I was living inside her, but she was still in control of everything she was doing. The only thing was that she seemed to forget that I existed. She only prepared breakfast for herself, then left for work. My mom worked as a waitress at a fancy restaurant, which she never took me to, so I was happy to see what it looked like. But her coworkers treated her horribly, and her boss was the worst.
You're working too slowly, Sandra. You're completely useless. Why don't you try be better? I'm not paying you to be a complete nincompoop.
I'm so sorry, sir.
My mom ran to a storage room and started crying. I felt the tears run down her cheeks and began to feel really sad too. Then, the only person who was her friend at work, a guy named Gareth, opened the door and tried to comfort her.
Don't worry about the boss. You know he's a jerk.
But he always makes me feel so horrible. I wouldn't stay here if it weren't for Josiah. But he thinks I hate him because I can't buy expensive toys. I am really trying my best, and it hurts so much that he thinks I don't like him. I've been looking for another job, but I've had no luck so far.
Don't worry, hon. Things will work out. By the way, would you like to go out with me on Friday night?
I can't. I'm sorry. I don't have anyone to watch Josiah.
Okay, well, let me know if anything changes. I'd love a chance to take you out.
That night, she went to bed and I fell asleep too. The next morning, I woke up in my own bed as myself. I went straight to my mom's room and gave her a big hug. She seemed a bit surprised.
Are you okay, baby?
I don't think you hate me, Mom. I'm sorry I behaved like that at the toy store. I'll try to be nicer. I love you and everything you do for me. She held me tightly and smiled. And, can I sleep over at Gerald's house on Friday night?
Sure, but I'll have to ask his mom.
Great. Gerald was my best friend, and I decided that it'd be good for my mom to go out with someone. Gareth seemed pretty cool. My dad left when I was born, and I didn't even remember what the guy looked like. Don't I sound really mature for a 9-year-old? Anyway, apparently all I had to do was wish to switch bodies with someone, and I could. Sometimes I'd do this just for entertainment, to see what their lives were like. But as time went by, I learned how to control the people whose bodies I possessed. I guess the universe knew why it chose me to receive this power, because another person could really use this for the worst things. One time, I switched bodies with the class bully Henderson, and because I could control him, I made him do all sorts of embarrassing things in front of everyone. But then I went to his house, and I really regretted it. His parents were mean to him and he seemed really sad and lonely. So when I switched back to my own body, I tried to be nice to him. No one knew what I could do until I told my best friend Gerald one day. We were already in our second year at high school.
Dude, I'm really freaking out about the physics test tomorrow.
Oh, I took that class last year and the tests were easy peasy.
Boasting about your intelligence doesn't really help my situation right now, Josiah.
I think I know how I can help, but you have to promise not to tell anyone.
Cheating?
No. Well, sort of. I don't know. I explained that I could switch bodies with others and that I could do the test for him. At first he cracked up laughing, but started looking serious when he realized that I wasn't laughing too.
Bro, you're serious?
Yes, I'll show you tomorrow. So Gerald got a 96 on his physics test, and reality set in that his best friend was some kind of superhero.
Dude, you can do so many things with this power.
I've been doing many things already.
Hey, you know what? I need help with something. You know I've had a crush on Roxanne for a while now. What if you could live her life for a while? Find out what her family is like, what hobbies she has, maybe read her diary if she has one? Then I'd have a better idea of what I should do or say to get her to feel the same way about me.
That's weird as hell, but okay. We waited until Roxanne was leaving cheerleading practice one afternoon. She was walking alone and I went up to her and started making conversation. Then it was done. I was living her life. Her parents came to pick her up, so I got into the car. I tried not to control her. I was just supposed to be an observer. Her parents were really nice, and when we got to her house, she went straight to hug her brother and sister. They looked like they were about 5 years old, and they were so adorable. She went to her room and did some boring girl stuff for a while, then she turned on her laptop and started talking to her friends. I could read everything she was typing, and I figured this would help me to learn a lot more about her. She opened up an old conversation she'd been having with her best friend, Lola, and what I read left me speechless. Lola.
I think you should just tell him.
Roxanne.
I'm afraid. What if he doesn't feel the same way?
Lola.
But you've been head over heels for him since elementary school. I think you gotta put on your big girl pants and just tell him.
Roxanne.
I'll talk to Josiah next week. Hopefully he'll ask me out.
What? All this time Gerald was crushing on Roxanne, she was busy crushing on me. How was I gonna handle all of this? I made her fall asleep, then I got back into my own body and escaped from the house. That night, she was all I could think about. I browsed through her Instagram pictures and realized that she was actually quite pretty, funny, and interesting. And maybe I had had feelings for her all along, but I just kept them to myself because of Gerald. The next day, Gerald bumped into me near the school's entrance.
You're back. So what did you find out?
Not much. She's pretty boring. I think you should consider the other girls out there.
No, she's the girl of my dreams.
At that moment, she walked by. She made eye contact with me and I smiled, then looked back at Gerald, hoping he hadn't noticed. Something shifted in me, and I realized that I'd never had a relationship, and I didn't believe that any girl could be even remotely interested in me. I decided that I'd try to persuade Gerald to dislike Roxanne, and I'd pursue her instead. After school that day, I told Gerald I had to rush home. I pretended to leave, but I actually waited until Roxanne finished cheerleading practice. When she walked out, I approached her. Hey Roxanne, how was your day?
Great. Thanks for asking.
She seemed a bit nervous. I was thinking, would you like to go out with me this Saturday?
I'd love that.
I'll pick you up at 6. I smiled and walked away.
Wait, how do you even know where I live?
She asked, but I was too far away to reply by then. I know this seems awful, but I was hoping that Gerald would understand because he was my friend. Big surprise. He didn't. When Roxanne and I became an item, he refused to talk to me for a while. 10 years have passed since then. Now Roxanne is my fiancé and Gerald doesn't really like me much anymore. But I'm hoping that we can still be friends in the future. You might be wondering what I did with my ability. Although I was really smart, I decided I didn't want to go to college because my mom couldn't afford it, and I didn't want to go into debt. So I started a detective agency, and I've solved 100% of my cases successfully. I have the best reputation in the country, and nobody has a clue how I do it. I solved some serious cases involving dangerous criminals. It was interesting to live their lives for a while, but after seeing all the horrible things they did, I felt better when I turned them into the police. Then I deal with milder cases, like cheating husbands and kids who pretend to be good at home but are actually dreadful at school. I charge a ton of money for my services because I know I'm great at what I do. Roxanne and I are getting married next month, by the way. Do you think I should invite Gerald to the wedding? I woke up from bright light shining directly into my eyes. So many thoughts were running through my mind. Why is this couch wet? Whose couch is this? Where am I? I threw my jacket on and found my way to the front door. But before I left, I took a peek in the mirror. My face was covered in lipstick stains and my arms were covered in phone numbers. God, I love my life. If you enjoyed this story, remember to hit those like and subscribe buttons below. We appreciate it. My older brother was my hero growing up. He was in high school when I was in elementary, so of course I idolized him. Nothing made me happier back then than going to family reunions and having everyone tell me I'd be just like my brother when I grew up. I started studying everything my brother did with girls. My mom didn't really like it, but she was busy babysitting the neighbor's kid, who was obsessed with her because she didn't have a mom. I was so focused on the theory of it all when I was a kid that I never put anything into practice. So in high school, whenever a girl talked to me, I turned bright red and couldn't look her in the eyes. The summer between high school and college is when things got good. I finally learned how to talk to girls. My brother was at a different stage in life by then, but he still visited sometimes.
I don't get it. Why didn't you just practice with the neighbor?
He asked, sprawled on his old bed while I tried on some of his old jackets. I can't stand Annika. The thought of her makes me want to puke, I said. The door that was only slightly closed shut all the way forcefully. Damn it, was that her? I asked my brother.
I hope not. Mom will kick your butt if you hurt her,
said my brother. I shrugged it off. I basically became my brother. I learned his walk, this confident walk that had every girl turning to look at me as I moved into my dorm. I knew how to look effortlessly attractive, and I ended the day with dozens of numbers. I spent the first weeks as a bit of a loner. One day after class, I was swarmed by a group of guys.
How do you do it?
One of them asked with this hilarious, desperate look in his eyes. How do I do what? I chuckled.
How do you get all these girls?
Another guy asked. I threw my arms over his shoulders and said, out of the kindness of my heart, I'll help you, hopeless bunch. I became their mentor. My room was the place to be if you had a date coming up. I'd tell guys what to wear, what to say, where to go, and what to do. The main thing I had to give these guys advice on was kissing. It was tough to explain, but an ex of mine that I was friends with didn't mind helping me demonstrate. It was a bit awkward for me to give them lessons on kissing, but they seemed to be working, and suddenly I had more pupils. Sometimes they'd fight at my door over who would be the one to knock. Sometimes the routine got a bit boring, but I also didn't want it to change. The day I noticed something changed, I was getting a cup of coffee near campus. I flirted with the barista, but she was cold. As I was leaving, I smiled at this cute girl, but she didn't smile back. Instead, she rolled her eyes. It was like that as I walked to class, too. I'd look at girls or smile at them or even say hi. Girls that I had talked to before and that had always flirted back. But they all ignored me or whispered something to their friends. I started walking faster when they stopped ignoring me and started shooting angry looks in my direction. When I got to my dorm, my friends were waiting for me.
Max, you gotta see this,
one of them said. They turned a laptop towards me and showed me a video. It was a girl, from the neck down, sitting on a bed in a dorm room surrounded by other girls.
You guys are too good, too smart for cheap tricks. None of it's real. He's playing you,
she said. My face went pale. They asked me if I knew who that girl was. Maybe an ex, I said. Not gonna lie, I was getting a bit dizzy. My life was crumbling around me. I stayed in bed until the guys barged into my room that night. I don't feel like going out, I muttered.
She's live streaming,
I heard before a laptop plopped down in front of me. That same girl was sitting outdoors on a bench in front of a tree, surrounded by like 50 girls listening to her. It took me a second, but then I recognized that tree. It was on my campus. I ran out the door immediately. I knew exactly where to go. I didn't make much noise when I walked up to the group of girls. I stood at the back and lifted my hand after a while to ask a question, hiding everything but my hand.
Yes, you at the back?
Said the strangely familiar voice. It was then when I stood up and saw her face. Annika? I exclaimed. My annoying old neighbor, the girl who was always clinging to my mom, the weirdo with the pigtails, was now sitting here trying to ruin my life.
Good to see you too, Max,
Annika said. As soon as she said my name, every girl in the audience turned to look at me. Have you ever had 50 pairs of eyes stare daggers into you? I have. I hope you never do. Later, I waited for her at the dorm. What's your problem, Annika? I crossed my arms and covered her door.
Get out of my face,
she said, crossing her arms too. Neither of us was gonna budge. I asked her why she was doing this, and she said she was sick of seeing girls everywhere fawning over what she knew was an act.
You're just a shy little boy trying too hard to be like your brother,
she said. Ouch. I'm guessing you think you're above all these girls? Out of my league? I asked, trying to hide that she got to me. So I could never make you fall for me, even if I tried? I asked her slyly, moving closer to her.
Never in a million years.
She replied, smirking. Our noses almost touched. All right, I said, backing up. I'm gonna have to prove you wrong. With that, I walked back to my dorm, brainstorming my master plan. She knew my brother's MO, so I needed to rebrand. When she arrived at her dorm the next day, she found me leaning on the door. I was holding a teddy bear and a DVD of the movie that I remembered being her favorite when we were kids. Let's watch it together, I said in my most flirtatious voice.
Nuh-uh. I don't want you in my room, let alone in my bed.
She said. She took the DVD and the teddy bear and threw them on her bed before shutting the door and pulling me by the sleeve out of the building. Where are we going? I asked.
To a party.
She replied. Minutes later, we were in a house booming with people and music. Annika sat on a couch while I went to get drinks. I must have been gone for like 2 minutes, but Annika was now busy sitting between two guys telling them some story. They were both inching closer to her, pretending to be engrossed in the story, when they were really engrossed in her. I shooed the two guys away. Every time I took her out after that, she would flirt with someone when I took my eyes off her. At the bowling alley, she flirted with the guy at the food stand. When I took her to a music festival, she gave 3 singers and 2 bass players her number. At the beach, I went to get some food and found her playing volleyball with a massive group of guys. It was like she was telling me that she would rather be with any other guy. The problem was that I didn't want to be with any other girl anymore. I don't know when it happened, but suddenly I was putting in even more effort when I took her out. Maybe it was when she punched me in the arm because I pointed out that her bowling shoes were bigger than mine. It could have been the way she really listened at the music festival. Maybe it was the way she elbowed those guys at the beach out of her way to win the game. I started dressing kind of the way I did when I was in high school, comfy sweaters and sneakers. I wanted to be comfortable with her. One day, I took her to see a movie, but she fell asleep on my shoulder. That's when I realized I was in danger. I moved harshly to wake her up. I didn't even walk her to her dorm that night. When I got home, I put all my normal clothes away and took out my brother's old stuff again. I ghosted Annika. I started going out with my friends again and texting other girls as a distraction, but I kept comparing every girl to her. One night, I walked a girl back to her dorm and she grabbed me by the shirt and kissed me. I kissed her back, imagining she was Annika. Then I heard a chuckle behind me and froze. I didn't notice the girl lived 2 doors down from Annika.
You don't change, do you?
She said, standing in front of her door. Wait, no, I know it looks bad, but I don't like this girl, I said to Annika, turning my back to the girl I was with. Annika didn't look like she cared, but I was desperate to apologize or explain. Then I felt someone push and slap me.
Say hi to the 12,000 people watching,
said the girl I had been with. She recorded me apologizing to Annika, and then me getting slapped. Then she recorded Annika slamming the door in my face and me sulking as I walked back to my dorm. I was a laughingstock. After that day, I couldn't leave my room without girls making fun of me. One group actually threw tomatoes at me. It was humiliating. Only my friends visited me, but they could all still go out and have fun. There was a soft knock on my door one night. I thought my friends came back early. I was surprised when I found Annika standing in front of me. She laughed at my messy appearance. She was holding a tub of ice cream and 2 spoons. She said I needed some fresh air, so we went to the terrace on the top of my building.
Want to hear something funny?
Annika asked me. I nodded while shoving a spoonful of ice cream into my mouth.
I had a huge crush on you as a kid.
She said, and the ice cream almost fell out of my mouth.
But then I heard you say you hated me to your brother.
She continued. I was a dumb kid. I didn't mean to hurt you, and I had no idea. I began before she cut me off, shoving some ice cream in my mouth.
It's okay. I don't like you anymore,
she said. She might as well have stabbed me with her spoon. I turned away from her to hide the look on my face. I knew she could see right through me. Do you think you could ever like me again? I asked her.
Maybe, if you were more like yourself.
I think that might have been exactly what I wanted to hear, because suddenly I was holding Annika's face in my hands and kissing her. I was both surprised and relieved when she kissed me back before she pulled away.
You know, you're not as good at kissing as people say you are,
she said, going back to her ice cream. I chuckled. I don't think any other girl would have said that to me. I finally asked Annika if she would go on a date with me. A real date when she doesn't flirt with other guys to get on my nerves. She gave me the most nonchalant
"Sure"
I had ever heard, but I could see her smiling from the corner of my eye, and she scooted closer to me.